Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in our listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host for today, Crystal Jimerson.
Hello, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on key data tools to unlock your business needs. I'm Crystal Jimerson, a training specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau, and I would like to thank you for joining us today for the Topics, Tools, and Data to Use webinar series. These webinars are a great opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. And if you'd like to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser. You can register for any of the webinars by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. We welcome written questions during the webinar. Please submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. We suggest keeping the chat panel open as we will provide key links and other resources throughout the webinar. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. That is for us to send out links and other resources related to the presentation. My colleagues will be monitoring the Q&A panel, and as time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the Q&A panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to during the webinar. If we do not get to all the questions with the response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. As you know, we are in a virtual environment, and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser, such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now I would like to introduce our speaker, Adam Grundy. Thanks for being here today. Adam, you may begin.
All right, thank you so much, Crystal, for the great introduction. My name is Adam Grundy. I'm a supervisor in the Data User and Trade Outreach branch of our Economic Directorate. I have over 15 years experience at Census, so I've worked in a variety of different surveys and programs, and I also lead and coordinate a lot of different outreach activities. Many of these include webinars like the one you're going to be hearing today. I've also done several different in-person presentations, and I've also written several different America Counts articles, which is our series for the census.gov writing series that we have available for data users. I also have a bachelor's degree in human studies and a certification in elementary education. So this is about how we're structured in the Economic Directorate. At the top of our pyramid is our high frequency surveys. These would be things like our business trends and outlook survey, things that gives like a pulse of what's going on in the economy. Next up on the pyramid is our monthly and quarterly small sample surveys that provide the most up-to-date, timely data available. So this would be examples such as our M3, or Manufacturers Inventories and Orders survey. And we also have data from the quarterly services survey as an example of a quarterly survey that provides data on the services sector. In the middle of our pyramid is our annual surveys. These have larger sample sizes, and they provide the most up-to-date trend data available. Things that you'll be hearing about in this presentation are things like the annual business survey, as well as a new survey called the Annual Integrated Economic Survey, or the AIES. And then every 5 years, the censuses measure all businesses and governments and provide the most up-to-date, comprehensive data available. And that would be things like our census of governments and the economic census. So while you may have heard about the population census, we have two other censuses that go on and the Economic Directorate. And then our foundational administrative data from the Business Register helps us supplement and produce additional economic products that you'll hear about today, such as county business patterns and non-employer statistics. So before I get too far into the overview of some of our key surveys and programs, I want to talk about some of the key terms that I'll be using during today's presentation. The first one is NAICS, or North American Industry Classification System. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, we have an example of a NAICS hierarchy. So basically at the 2-digit level of a sector of information is a very broad category. As you add digits to a NAICS code, you get much more specific. So for example, at the industry group of 5151 of radio and television broadcasting is much more specific than the broad category of information. As you add digits to a NAICS code, you get much more specific all the way down to a U.S. industry code of 515112 of radio stations. I'll also talk about the difference between establishments and companies and firms. An establishment is just a single physical location of a business, whereas a company or firm can have multiple establishments within that. We also have an example of an employers versus non-employers. The main difference between these terms is that an employer business has paid employees, whereas a non-employers have no paid employees. And I'll go through some examples later on. So while most of our programs only cover employer businesses, we also have a non-employer statistics survey that covers all the self-employed individuals. And of course, U.S. Code Title 13 and 26 protects all the business privacy and confidentiality, which makes people comfortable to respond to our surveys and programs. All right, so first up is where all this great data comes from. It comes from a couple different things that we're going to be talking about today. The first one is county business patterns, which covers employer businesses in the United States, allows us to produce little snapshots of what's going on in the economy, much like you see on the left-hand side of your screen, about an infographic on performing arts, spectator sports, amusement parks and arcades, as well as museums and other institutions. Non-employer statistics covers all the non-employer businesses in the United States or self-employed persons. The annual business survey covers employer businesses in the United States and includes our business owner data. So if, for example, if you want to know the number of, let's say, female-owned bakeries in the state of Ohio, the annual business survey would be your best bet for that. And then the economic census is our official 5-year measure of American businesses, providing comprehensive statistics at the national, state, and many other local levels. So diving closer into county business patterns first. Again, like I mentioned before, it covers employer businesses, allows us to produce great statistics on a lot of different categories, much like the big game that we had back in February. And the most recent data available as of today's date is for calendar year 2022. However, the new data for the county business patterns will be released this June of this year. We also have statistics on the number of establishments, employment, and annual payroll for nearly every 2 through 6 digit NAICS code. So that's what makes it such a popular annual program. The data are published at the national, state, metro area, county, congressional district, and even zip code levels. It does cover the 5 U.S. territories, and the data are shown by the employment size of the establishment. And again, that's a single physical location of a business, and also the LFO, or legal form of organization. Next up is our non-employer statistics. This covers all the self-employed persons in the United States, published on an annual basis, and much like county business patterns, new data will be coming out this June. This includes statistics on the number of firms and also revenue sources for most 2 through 6 digit NAICS codes. So you can see on the left-hand side is an example of a new infographic that just published that I coordinated. And it takes a look at some of the different gig economy categories, such as taxi and limousine services. So we see a lot of non-employers working. Also things like landscaping services or child care services, like basically a family daycare that runs a daycare out of their own home kind of thing. And also we have independent artists, writers, and performers as another driver of the gig economy. So while data are published at the national, state, and metro area and county levels for the non-employer statistics, unfortunately it does not cover the 5 U.S. territories in this case. The data are shown by the revenue size of the firm and by legal form of organization. Next up is our annual business survey. Like I mentioned before, covers the employer businesses in the United States and provides our great business owner data. Also includes statistics on the number of firms, so again, the number of companies, employment figures, annual payroll, sales, shipments, receipts, and revenue for every 2 through 4-digit NAICS code. And the data are published at the national, state, county, and even place levels. So again, as an example of this, if I was looking for a number of what you can see on the left-hand side, a coffee shop of veteran-owned coffee shops, we would have that data available from the annual business survey. And the most recent data was released in February of 2025. So coinciding with non-employer statistics is our non-employer statistics by demographics. This allows us to track business activity for the non-employers. It allows us to also look at the key non-employer business owner demographics statistics about these business owners. So this includes a number of non-employer firms and revenue, and is published at the national, state, metro, and county levels. And of course, at the bottom, like I mentioned before, the economic census at the bottom of our pyramid, this is conducted every 5 years, years ending on digit 2 and 7, and it provides as a benchmark for other economic surveys. So here's some brief highlights about the 2022 Economic Census Geographic Area Statistics data that was recently released, and I'll also be sharing a data visualization that's interactive later on this presentation. So 8 million employer establishments generated 50.5 trillion in sales, and they employed 136.6 million people with 8.5 trillion in annual payroll in the United States. And all the results, including this and much more, are available to use free and online. This is our updated Economic Census Accelerated Release Plan. So you may have seen earlier presentations that showcased data coming out at later dates. This is the most recent visualization, I should say, of our Accelerated Release Plan for the 2022 Economic Census. So we're currently in April, and we just recently published our establishment and firm size statistics. Next up in May, we're going to be publishing our product statistics, which are based on the North American Product Classification System, or NAPS, for the United States and other states. And finally, the last release that we're going to be doing for the 2022 Economic Census is going to go all the way through tentatively March of 2026, and this is going to be covering all our miscellaneous subjects. And then also we have our public sector, or governments. There's 5 different annual surveys to provide economic statistics about state and local governments, and this is part of our Census of Governments survey. This serves as a public sector counterpart to private sector data, and while the response is voluntary, there's virtually no confidentiality restriction because the data is public record. So we're able to repackage different things within that data in order to make sense for our data users. And of course, the annual integrated economic survey is our new survey that's coming out. And it's exciting because it meets our data users' needs. It provides timely, granular, and standardized data, and it combines 7 of our previous annual surveys into one big survey. So while we were trying to reduce burden for some of our respondents and things like that, we're also trying to make it improve efficiencies by being consistent across many of our annual programs and surveys. So these are the 7 annual surveys that have been absorbed into the AIES, or Annual Integrated Economic Survey. Many of you may have heard about in the past, such as the Annual Survey of Manufacturers, Service Annual Survey, and Annual Retail Trade Survey. So these are some of the benefits that allows respondents and data users and stakeholders to understand the needs for us to continue to be on the cutting edge of statistics. It allows us to adapt to the evolving needs of our respondents and our data users, provide them the most up-to-date data available for data that makes sense for multiple users. And it consolidates and content easing our respondent burden. So maybe some of these survey respondents had been responding to 4 out of 4 surveys for their business. We can reduce that to just 1 main response. And it allows us to produce timely, accurate, and relevant statistics as expected from the U.S. Census Bureau. So this is our brief timeline from the AIES. The collection closeout is coming up in October 2024, with the publication first coming out in July of 2025. So we're really excited about that. These are some key ways to use census data, which is the main part of this presentation, using some of our core data tools in order to get the data that you're looking for. The first one is Census Business Builder. We're currently on version 5.9 or 5.9. It's a very easy to use platform. I'll be demoing it in just a moment. And it's basically it's a cloud-based platform. It's provided for free from the Census Bureau, and it leverages our existing investments in our Census API, as well as developing the tool was developed by a company called Esri or ESRI. In this report section of Census Business Builder, you will see interactive charts. You will see multiple geographic reports and also single geographic reports as well. And these are some of the data sources, a lot of things you've heard about today. Business data from the county business patterns, non-employer statistics, economic census, and some of our surveys of business owners, much like the annual business survey. We also have imports and exports data from international trade, workforce data from the quarterly workforce indicators, building permits is in there, and also consumer spending data, figuring out how much people are spending on certain categories of expenses. For example, how much people spend out on going out for dinner would be examples of a consumer spending data point that we have directly in this data tool itself. Just as an example about what the page is going to look like once I go live. This is just an example about census data in action, opening a business in the state of Alabama. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have a number of establishments, again, single physical location of businesses compared to non-employer firms. All the non-employers across multiple sectors of the economy usually outweigh the number of paid employee businesses. So you can see that there's 350,480 non-employer firms compared to 147,385 establishments in all sectors of the economy in Alabama. Another thing you'll see in this report is a business comparison. So looking at similar businesses like yours, if you're either looking to start up a business or even grow or expand your business, this would be a very important part of the picture for you. And also our business summary provides a little different custom industries that you can manipulate and download yourself. All right, so now I'm going to go live to Census Business Builder, and I'm going to provide some examples about how you can use our data in action. So now you should be able to see the main dashboard of Census Business Builder. What I'm going to do is I can show you exactly what you're going to see on your own platform. If you want to go live to your own browser, like we mentioned in the beginning of this webinar, you can go to cbb.census.gov. So this one allows us to take a look at economic and demographic data onto a map, is basically what Census Business Builder is all about. While we can search for a location right away if we're comfortable with the data tool, there also is a take a tour option that allows you to simulate the core functionality of the data tool. So I'm going to start with the geographic location of California by typing in the word California here. And I'm going to go directly to that state. So all I've done so far is type in the word California, and I can see I'm looking at all sectors of the economy. So for my first example of a business that may want to use Census Business Builder, I'm going to go to the example of a real estate location. So if I type in the word real estate into my custom industries, scroll down until I find a category that makes sense for me. So let's go to offices of real estate agents and brokers. I'm going to select that. I can see in the state of California, there's 25,768 establishments. Okay. Now, for my secondary variable, I'm going to go to the tab at the top where it says no secondary variable. I'm going to select that. Make sure the primary variable is no longer selected by clicking on secondary variable. From there, I'm going to go to business annual and select that. And now I'm going to go to non-employers and all non-employer firms. Okay. Now I can see there's 103,281 real estate agents and brokers that have no paid employees. So these might be independent contractors, they might be working as a part of the gig economy, much like we talked about earlier in this presentation. So if I was a real estate agent or broker, I might want to look at this couple key information points from here. So first of all, this tells me about other businesses that are like mine in the United States for real estate agents and brokers, but also I can manipulate some of these categories on the dashboard. So if median household income isn't important to me as a real estate agent, I can go ahead and look at some of our housing data in here too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to housing characteristics. So I see state is selected, consumer residence is selected, and now let's go to housing characteristics. If a real estate agent was doing a good job, they would want to know the total number of renter occupied housing units because they might want to figure out how many people are ready to move out of a rental property into potentially a home, a home that they own. So renter occupied housing units is 5.9 million compared to other categories we might want to do in our housing characteristics, such as the home ownership rate. So I'm going to go to find this home ownership rate and select that on that radio button. So 56% is a home ownership rate in the state of California currently. I also see the number of all employer establishments, which we already have over here, but I'm going to go ahead and select a new variable. So if I want to take a look at, let's say, consumer spending data, like I mentioned before, which is part of the data tool, I'm going to see how much people are spending out on their housing. Anytime you see a drop-down arrow means there's more data available. So I can select the drop-down arrow. And let's see if I want to see how much people are spending on, let's say, water. So on an annual basis, 1.2 thousand per year for the average household. And then home ownership rate is 56%. I already have that in here. So I'm going to change that variable again. And I'm going to select, let's say, owner occupied housing units. Okay. So each of these things is repopulating in real time as I select each of these different things. If I wanted to create my own region, and I know we've had questions about that in the past, one of the things I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit to some of the different examples of counties that we have available. So I'm going to make sure county is selected for the state of California. I'm going to go ahead and reopen my dashboard here. And now I'm going to select region view. Okay. So from region view and compared to detailed view, I can actually create my own region now. So I'm going to go create region, and I'm going to start selecting some of the counties that might be of interest to me as a real estate agent or broker. Okay. So if I select this county here, and let's let it populate for a second. My apologies for any lag in this. So after I select that county, create region, I can also name my region in the meantime while this is loading too. So I can call this Adams Real Estate Region. And this, whatever you name your real estate, your region, it will show up in the report. So I can see now that the colors are starting to show up on the maps. That means this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and select a different county. Select this one here. And as you can see, it's building on my report over here. I'm going to select this county over here, Sacramento County. And let's select just one more over here at the top. And that is Placer County, California. Once I'm done building my region, I'm going to click the Save Edits button. And it's going to give me all those different variables that I previously did by such as renter occupied housing units, home ownership rate, and per household spending on water and owner occupied housing units. And it's going to give me a comparison to how some of these counties are doing side by side. Okay, so once that's done building out that, I can go ahead and create my region report. So again, I'm going to walk us through some different examples about why this would be important. So if I click the Create Report button, I can see that I'm still in offices of real estate agents and brokers. I'm in the counties that I've selected here are found in my dashboard report here. And it tells me what's going to be found in this. The first thing that you'll see populate is the map. Okay, so this is color coded by the legend you can see on the right hand side. If you want to download anything from this report, you can go to the export button and do CSV for if you want to download the raw files, or you can go to print PDF in case you wanted to build out a business plan type of thing. We also see imports and exports data for the supply chain, consumers' residence data. So even if I'm a real estate agent um, and I'm looking for people of the working age to see what my clientele would look like, there's also a couple of different examples I can do in here, even if I wasn't a real estate agent. If I wanted to open up a family daycare, the percent under 5 years old would make a lot of sense to me, looking at the population of this region to see if it makes sense to open up another family daycare. If I'm opening up a restaurant or a bar, the percent 18 years and over, and especially the legal drinking of 21 years and over, would be much more important for me to take a look at. As I continue to scroll down this chart, I can see other things from the American Community Survey, such as percent in poverty, percent employed, percent disabled, and so forth. If I want to change anything on the right-hand side, like I mentioned, you could download the report, take with you. All you have to do is simply select this little chart here, and percent with health coverage. You will see that will repopulate on the right-hand side. You also have housing characteristics, which I mentioned before. For example, of real estate agents and brokers would be very important for you to understand. Employment characteristics is also in here. Again, anytime you see an arrow, it means you can collapse it or expand it. We also have a number of employer establishments by the size of these businesses. So one of the things to keep in mind is you might not see categories for employer businesses if you don't select an actual industry other than total sectors. So while the default of Census Business Builder does filter on all sectors of the economy, you have to choose an industry in order for some of this business data to come up. And another thing to keep in mind is we recommend starting at the county level for business data and then working your way down to see what other data is available at local levels. So we also have business revenue data in here for these businesses of real estate agents and brokers and so forth. Now, if I was going to do a different example of Census Business Builder, I can go back to our map and I'm going to go right from the beginning by clicking on that logo at the top left. Okay, well, let's do a different geographic location. Let's do to Florida this time. To go to the East Coast here. And now I'm going to use an example of a restaurant. Okay, so again, if I want to use some of my keyword searches, I don't even have to know my NAICS code. I can start to type in the word restaurant. I can see restaurants and other eating places will start to come up. It's just taking a moment to load. My apologies for the slight delay here. So while this is loading, I just want to make you aware that in this report, the consumer spending data is available at the very bottom of the report. So if you're taking a look at an example of how much people are spending out on children's apparel versus girls apparel and boys apparel and things like that. We have all that data available in here that we purchase directly from Esri, which comes from our the credit card receipts that we get purchased directly from Esri in order to make this data tool even more powerful for you guys. Okay, so I can start to look at restaurants and other eating places now. I'm going to do the 4-digit NAICS code to start. I can see that this is the number of establishments that would have paid employees in the state of Florida. Now, if I was a prospective restaurateur, I would want to know what some of the other counties are like in the state of Florida that maybe have a rich number of restaurants and maybe some other areas that might be a good place to open up a restaurant. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into some of the central Florida area right here. And I'm going to go to another example here for my detailed view while this is loading. And I'm going to go ahead and select some of my variables again while this is loading. So while establishments was the main primary variable that I've selected, I can do some of my consumer spending data and see how much people are spending out on dining out. Okay, so I select that one. My secondary variable, I'm going to go ahead to do our workforce data and see how much people all the hires for educational attainment. So let's go with high school education. at least for people that may be working in a restaurant, and so to speak. Okay, so while my primary variable is per household spending on dining out, food away from home, my secondary variable is all the potential hires for high school and education. Okay, so as this populates, it's calculating all the different data points we have for each of these different statistics that I've selected. Okay, so again, if I wanted to build my own region, I would want to make sure I go to region view and select some of the different counties that we have here. So we see that the map is populated. So if I was looking at the example of for per household dining out away from home, the legend on the right-hand side tells me some of the categories with the dark blue being the largest areas of where people are spending out, spending on their money on dining out for food. So for example, this Orange County, Florida is a large driver of that. But let's say I want to open up a restaurant in this particular county of Citrus County, Florida. I could take a look at some of the different clientele that are out there for how much they're spending on dining out and see if it makes sense. The rent might be higher in Orange County, Florida, most likely with a metropolitan area than it would be and other things like that. So these are all the different things you can factor into the equation for making the data tool make sense for you. Okay. So those are just two different examples of many that you can do using Census Business Builder. So let me go back to the presentation. And now I'm going to show you a different data tool to help us unlock some of the other business needs that you might have. This one comes from our economic census, and it's a geographic area statistics interactive data visualization. The slides will be available after the fact, but you can also follow along with me at this URL that's provided on the screen here, as well as just following along with me right now. So if I go to my interactive data visualization, I'm going to go there now. Okay, this is from the 2022 Economic Census Geographic Area Statistics. This one, much like Census Business Builder, overlays data onto a map. But I'm also going to go, oops, I think I clicked on something by accident. My apologies. Let me just reload this real quick. All right, so this one is built on the screen now. We see a couple different examples of statistics that we have available at our disposal. The first one is revenue. So basically the size of the circle depends on the area, the number of the statistic. So basically the larger the circle, the higher the revenue in this case. So if I want to go to a specific state, let's go with Ohio this time. I'm going to scroll down to the word Ohio. And now to make it catch, I have to click on view county level data. So this talks about examples of revenue in our statistics at the 2-digit sector. If I want to turn any of these NAICS sectors off and maybe just focus on, let's say, manufacturing and retail trade, I have to click those boxes and now click apply. Okay. So I can see the revenue for each of these different things for a combined basis. And if I want to hover over that, certain counties, it tells me exactly in real time what those statistics are for revenue for manufacturing and retail trade. Okay. So while revenue is one of the main statistics available, if I want to change that to, let's say, number of employees, I'm going to select that and it'll repopulate on the map. And again, the size of the circle, the larger the circle, the greater the concentration of that statistic. I can also do other different industry groups, such as 4-digit industry group, all the way to 6-digit national industry. Other things you can look at is Q1 payroll, annual payroll, and the number of establishments. So again, if for the state of Ohio, if I want to see where most of the business activity is going to, I can select all industries, click apply. You can see most of the business activity is right here. Franklin County, Ohio has a pretty large circle, and other statistics you can find would be examples for Hamilton County, Ohio, and also for Butler County. And each of these charts populates in real time. Okay, so that's another example of a data tool that you can use for your business needs. I'm going to go back to the presentation now. All right, so now for the next part of our slide. Oh, sorry. My apologies, clicking too fast. All right, so the next part of our presentation is looking at other ways you can access our data using other data tools. So we have things such as quick facts, much like the name implies, gives you a quick version of some of the different statistics available from the Census Bureau. We also have My Congressional District, which allows us to look at business data by the congressional district level, much thanks to the County Business Patterns program for providing statistics for that. You also saw Census Business Builder today. We also have other data available from the COVID-19 Data Hub. Data.census.gov is our main data dissemination platform. And this list is in by ease of use. So QuickFacts is very easy to use, very user friendly. Census Business Builder, like I showed you, the first data tool I demoed, is pretty easy to use too, but it takes some nuancing and let's practice with it in order to make sure that you're following along with it. And then, of course, data.census.gov can be a little bit tricky to use, but we're here to help for you guys, whatever your business needs may be. So I want to thank you for your time and attention today. This is how you can get a hold of me. And also, I want to open it up to our Q&A session right now. I know there may have been some questions that have been coming through. So I'll turn it back over to Crystal and see what other questions you might have for me.
So hi Adam, this is Kimberly Davis. I'm part of the Data Dissemination and Training Branch team. I'm here along with my colleagues Brian Berman and Dave Schuler. We've been moderating the chat session today, and I have a couple of questions that we would like to ask of your presentation. Thank
Sure.
you for this great information and the updates about the changes on the economic program. The first question I'd like to ask is you gave a really great example about the real estate and how someone could look at the real estate industry in California and then how they could modify that to customize the real estate industry down to a lower geography for a select few counties in a smaller area. As we see the real estate industry change and brokers work maybe independently or individually, different than the traditional real estate industry where real estate agents worked for an organization, could you show me in the NAICS, the North American Industry Classification System, how I might search those different classifications for real estate?
Sure, absolutely. So if I go back to census.gov real quick and go to the NAICS website, the URL for this is census.gov/NAICS or NAICS. So if I want to type in, let's say I'm a real estate agent, I just don't happen to know my NAICS code, and I want to get more data, all the data that would be available to me from the Census Bureau, I can type in a keyword such as real estate, and I can click the word go. From there, I can see all the different things that correspond to the keyword of real estate. So we have real estate subdividers, real estate credit lending, all the 6-digit NAICS code, all the way down to where you heard me talking about agencies and brokers, broker offices. That's the NAICS code of 531210. So again, if I was looking for a different example for a real estate agent, I would look through this list here on census.gov/NAICS. And again, if I want to just do a different search, such as bakeries, I can type in the word go, type in the keyword search for bakeries and click the word go, and then it tells me everything that we would have related to that keyword of bakeries. So those are two different examples there.
Great, thank you. That really explains how to break that down and clarify that 6 code industry to give that explanation about the North American industry classifications. How frequently do those update or change?
Sure. So in our NAICS manual, you can see we have the past versions of these. These are updated every 5 years, usually in economic census years. So we have the economic census for 2022 that just came out on the 2022 NAICS basis, and then we have the 2017 NAICS code, which was corresponding with the 2017 NAICS, 2017 economic census. So these are updated every 5 years.
Okay,
as we have,
fantastic. Thank you.
as we have new industries that come up, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so then those codes will stay in place until the next economic census in 5 years.
Correct. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. That really helps me understand those classifications when I'm looking at industries in the Census Business Builder program.
Absolutely.
Another question that we have that we'd like some clarification on is if I'm not sure about the difference between employer and non-employer
Mhm.
businesses. Let's say that I have a daycare, and maybe my mother-in-law is helping me. And how do I know the difference in clarifying that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, especially for family daycares. It could be a lot of independent contractors or potentially multiple people working within that family daycare as well. One thing to keep in mind for this is for non-employers, they fill out a 1099 tax form and allows us to track the business activity through that as well. So basically, if they're filling out their 1099 tax form, that it's just, for example, like a mom and pop type of operation, it would still be classified as a non-employer in this case too, even if they had two people that were running the day-to-day operations. A non-employer would be classified under that particular example for that one.
Fantastic. Thank you. That really helps me out with that.
Not a
And
problem.
one final question that I have is who can I contact if I'm struggling using these tools? Do I contact you?
Absolutely. You can contact me or you can contact our great census.ask data at census.gov people. Whether or not they point you directly to me, it usually does end up in my inbox at some point, and I'd be happy to walk anybody else through any of these different examples or any other business needs that you may have.
Fantastic. And I think we do have time if you don't mind me asking. Can you review one more time how to use uh, the Census Business Builder to get specific demographic information?
Sure. All right. So if I go back to Census Business Builder, I can see different examples of things on the dashboard here. So if I wasn't interested in real estate agents or restaurants or anything like that, I could also take a look at some of the different things on here by my dashboard. So by clicking on the first variable here, if I was looking for mostly demographic characteristics, I want to make sure I select consumers residence. You can see different demographic characteristics are already highlighted on this example. So if I want to go down to, let's say, percent under 18 years old is one of my examples. And then if I want to set my primary variable for consumers residence for the total population, I can do that by selecting that as well. Okay, so as this repopulates, it can tell me different examples. Oh, I need to select geography. There we go. Now the population comes up. So Sumter County in Florida has this population, and 7.1% of that population is under 18 years old. So just make sure you select the geography first in order to get these dashboards to pop up. These will change as you click on each of the different county levels or whatever other geographic levels that you choose.
And Adam, I'm noticing that in the geographies in the upper left-hand corner,
Mm-hmm.
states are in blue and the cities and zip codes and tracts are gray. Does that mean that those are not available? The cities, zip codes, and tracts?
Usually, if it's available, if it's in gray over here, it might be part of the we see the water sources over here and stuff like that. So that would be the example of the things that would be gray here. But you're right. If I zoom down to a level that doesn't have the business data available, let's say a census tract, and it's grayed out, um, that means that data would not be available at those particular geographies. So you'd have to zoom back out and you can see some of the different examples. Since I'm under the example of total population, you can see these are available at the census tract. All the data is available for each of these different neighborhoods or census tract levels. So, but business data is typically available at the county level and then potentially at city and town and zip codes. You can work your way down.
And would veterans fall under the demographic data. If I'm someone that would like to apply as a veteran for a business.
Sure. Yeah, for the annual business survey, we have a lot of different great data about our veterans and the veteran business owners. If you're looking for more information on that, we do have a annual business survey site. If somebody from the team can put that in the chat for the annual business survey from the program slides that are provided. And if you have any questions about that, we'd be happy to address anything you might have for your business needs.
Okay. Well, thank you, Adam. I'm going to stop asking you questions. I know I was finished a long time ago and I keep loading you with questions. So
It's all good.
I will
Yeah.
stop asking you questions now and turn it over to Crystal now. Thank you so much. This was fantastic information.
Happy to help.
Yes, great. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Adam, for this informative presentation and on the data tool and our visualization walkthrough. And if you would like assistance or more information on our data and our resources, we do have an excellent team of data dissemination specialists across the region who are available. You can request a training by visiting the Census Academy page at census.gov /academy. And there you will find other resources such as our recorded webinars. This webinar here will be posted within 30 business days, and also our data gems. And before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. We thank you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. We are very interested in hearing from you on how we are doing. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation that will appear when you exit the webinar. That brings us to a close, and we thank you again for joining us today and hope you have a great afternoon.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.